Good evening. Welcome to the August 26, 2025 meeting of the Bexar County Board of Education. We're glad to see you all here this evening and hope you have had a great start to our school year. It is 6 p.m. and the meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with approving our agenda. Could I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Kelly?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Bradford? All in favor? All right, thank you. We'll move on now with our superintendent's report. Look forward to Dr. LaDuff's system update.
Yes, ma'am. Just one item. I want to thank our school leaders for a fantastic start to the school year. I've heard some say it was the best start yet, and hopefully we'll improve upon that next year. Also like to thank our community for being patient with us as we work through registration. Thanks to our registration team for working very diligently and putting in some overtime hours to get our kids enrolled, our new students enrolled as quickly as they can. We are back on schedule in terms of that, and Dr. Thompson will talk more about that in his report. Also want to thank our transportation team as they've worked to get us off to a great start this school year and balancing bus routes and making sure that our kids are getting to and from school in a timely manner. We've got one action item this evening. That's our local Board of Education training plan, and I recommend approving that as presented. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Everyone good with moving that to consent? All right. We'll move on now to presentations and discussions and begin with Dr. Thompson, Deputy Superintendent.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you as always. For this particular meeting, we have 5 items of information for the board and 2 action items that we will ask the board to vote on at the September 2nd board meeting. I'll begin. First information item, the July communications report is posted. I'm not going to go through that with you, but it is there for your review and has a lot of information on how we use social media and other communications platforms with our community and families in July. The second item I'm going to ask Ms. Persinger to come up and assist me with. As Dr. LaDuff mentioned, registration was a challenge this year, and we are appreciative to the community for their patience and also for our team for really putting in those hours. But we also want to talk about the 11th day student count, and we want to talk a bit more about enrollment trends and some of what we are seeing both long and short term in that. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Persinger to start.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Yes, I do appreciate all the support that we had with registration this year, and we're going to talk a little bit about what happened and where our students came from and what enrollment we have now. So we're looking at this slide shows you our fall enrollment over a history of 4 years. So what we present to you generally for a day 1 count is attendance. But we do track enrollment. We just know some of those kids we expect are coming and they have moved over the summer and they don't come in. So the blue line is our day 1 attendance each year. The green line is our day 11. It's specific to day 11 because after 10 days of school, if a student hasn't shown up, that's when we drop them from our rolls. So then we do a count of on day 11. So those are students that we know are truly in our school building for some part of that beginning of the school year. So it's typical to see that number drop. You see that one year that's an anomaly where we registered a bunch right there at the end or in those first few days of school. It is normal for that to drop a little bit because we have students that we think are coming that then don't show up. So as we were leading into the school year, we spent a lot of time on registration and communication about registration. We know we have a great team here that works with these families for registration, and they really own the fact that for a lot of these families, they're the first introduction to Bexar County schools that these families have, and they really try to offer that great customer service to those families. And then we work a lot with Nicole and her team on getting the word out of it's time to register, get your kids registered. And these are just some samples of some of the communications that Nicole and her team put out. I think these are specific to Facebook. And so you can see these are from May and from June. We start as early as the pre-K lottery that starts back in March, and then we start getting those kids registered right there, March and April. That's 300 right there all in itself, more than 300. So we really are trying to get the word out with families. And then by June, you can see she's saying all your K-12 students, let's go ahead and get those registered. So this is a screenshot from our website, where this is what a parent sees when they go to online to register their child. It is completely done online. I will say it is a long process. There are lots of questions that have to be answered. There's lots of state and federal agencies that require that we ask all kinds of questions about your child, and some that recent legislation actually increased some of the questions that we have to ask, that we ask parents to tell us about their child. But you can see that we try to outline it for the parents on the line, online. It also has a link to some FAQs, because we know that this can be a daunting process, especially for those doing it the very first time. It lists all the documents you need. Those are also linked to give you more explanation of what those will be. And then we put that banner up there that said, please register and have all your things to us by July 11th to guarantee that you start school on time. And so we had a lot come in that July 11th was a Friday. We had a lot come in that week to get in there. Unfortunately, that was not everybody, as we learned. So we'll talk about that in a second. Megan, if you'll go to the next slide for me. Thank you. This is actually what it looks like when a parent starts the registration. That little box on the left, it just asks them for some basic information, and they click submit, and it sends them an email that has that first box at the top is just a sample of what's in there that basically says you're about to start the registration process. The reason it does that is it gives them a link to their application, so that if they don't have all the pieces they need right away, they can stop and then come back to that email, click on that link, get back in there. So we hope that they only receive those top 3 emails from us. The first one that says welcome, and you can start the process. The second one says you have submitted. And then the third one says you're approved. And like in this case, it's one that says your child's coming to Winder Bear High School and welcome to part of the Barrowbold family, and tells them how to proceed and how to know when their child's going to start. Unfortunately, we have a lot that get this last one that says your application is on hold because you're missing documents, and then it's typed in there. Somebody on the team types in exactly what you're missing. I tried to pick examples to show you that don't have kids' names, that kind of thing, but it's basically telling you, here's what you're missing, and we need you to do it and resubmit. Now, one thing I do want to say is any normal given day, we have probably 24 applications that come in. And that's a lot. But the team members try, when they get to this place where you're putting one on hold, let me call the family, let me talk through what you need. When we get in that July rush, we can't have that conversation with every family. So that's when they're getting this email back that says it's on hold. And we've explained in there what you need, but it's not a personal conversation. And like Dr. Thompson said, and Dr. LeDuc, that we put in some long hours. I had somebody from the community call me and say, well, she received an email at 3 o'clock in the morning. Right, it's because somebody was working at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's when it came back to you. Obviously, we did not ask that of our staff, but this was so important to them. If they were awake in the middle of the night, this is what they were doing, was working on registrations. So our biggest roadblocks, as you see here, are previous school information, and that is particularly important based on recent legislation of we have to get those records from a previous school. And I think some parents were confused of, you need me to go get the records. I don't need you to go get the records. I just need you to tell me where the student was so that I can request the records. So I have this screenshot because we put it in lots of emails back to parents of this is what we're missing. So it's a question that says, has your child been in school before? And if they say yes, they're required to fill out these fields. For whatever reason, a lot of them said no, but we can tell your child's 12, your child has been somewhere. We need to know whether it's homeschool, private school. I need to know that information because we have to request those records. So that was a big roadblock for a lot of families. And then a proof of residency is really difficult for many families. Most of us in this room could probably just pull your utility bill, send it in, and be done. That is not true for a lot of the families registering with us. They either don't have bills in their name, they're living with another family member, they're living with a friend, the bills are not in their name. there's just various reasons that they don't have what we need. As you can see, we even put specific instructions for Jackson EMC bills. We have to see that there's a service tied to that address. So in other words, your maybe car insurance bill could be mailed anywhere. It could be mailed to a P.O. box. It could be mailed to somebody else's home. So we have to have a bill that has a service tied to your home. And we also have to see the service address. So the mailing address could be the P.O. box. I have to see the service address. So we even specifically say for Jackson EMC bills, some of the information's on the front of the bill, some is on the back. So I actually need both pages. If it's a lease that you're sending me, it has to be a valid lease. It can't be dated 2022. I have to know that it's current. So a lot of families got really frustrated. I know there were some complaints of, I sent it to you, why do you need to see my whole bill? There really are reasons. We're not just being, I really am not interested in what your bill, what the amount is. I just need to see all the information to get you registered. So those were the biggest roadblocks. Most recently, we've had some issues. I need a birth certificate that shows your child's age. We've had some families recently that says, I don't have one and I don't have the money to pay for one. When I asked someone today, I was told that's $25. Now, I don't know if that's in the state of Georgia or they were having to go back to another state. I mean, I don't have a budget to help these families do that. So we're then working with how do we help you get the documentation that you need that you're telling us you don't have. And then there were several times I had to put on my legal hat and try to read some custody documents because I have one parent trying to register at one address and one parent trying to register the same child at another address. And while we try to stay out of custody issues, sometimes I've got to figure out whose registration are we processing. So it's not quite as easy as one would think, that you can just take all the information and click submit. So then on the next slide, we talk about a little bit about that late July rush. Like I said, we asked for applications to be in by July 11th. From July 12th until the first day of school, we had 872 applications submitted, new applications, not even the ones that are resubmitted because we sent them back to you. That was over 1,100 students that we had registered just during that time. I have a staff of 4 full-time employees that work on this, and then we pay 5 employees hourly. They don't work 40 hours a week. Some of them come in a couple days a week or a few hours a day, but extra people that come in to try to help us. Less than 50% of those applications could be approved the first time around. Most of them we were having to send back to ask for something, either more information or more documentation. And then I just put some examples of the messages that we sent back to families that we asked for more information. So as you know, then we hit this rush and we were trying to we obviously want students in class as soon as possible. So we had to rethink how are we moving forward from here. So many of the departments at the PDC were so gracious to offer us some additional staff. What we really needed at that point, because families were starting to ask questions like, when am I going to get registered? When am I going to get registered? Stopping to answer the phone keeps us from processing applications. So we literally, as you can see in this picture, put some staff at the front desk just to filter those phone calls. They knew how to look in the system and see, okay, they sent it back to you because they need this, or no, it looks like you have all the things and you're just in line to be processed. Sometimes families came up here trying to bring us some of the documents. They didn't know how to upload them. So just having staff up front to kind of filter that out so that the rest of the staff could actually be processing was great. As we said, they worked nights, they worked weekends up here. And we actually have a meeting tomorrow to then debrief and think, okay, how do we handle this? We know it's going to happen every year. What other things could we put in place? While it's fresh on our mind, what are some things that we could put in place now? So we'll work on that tomorrow. So next, what you'll actually see are our enrollment numbers, because of course what we're thinking is we spent all that time getting all these students registered. Where are we going to put all these children? But if you look, you will see, we looked at the numbers and there actually was a decline this year. This is some history of our grade level enrollment numbers, and what's particularly interesting is this year's kindergarten number and how different it is from previous years. That's what stuck out to me when I was looking at this data. So we looked even farther in the next slide at our kindergarten trends, and what you will see in that slide is that Megan, if you can go one more for me. Thank you. That it's not unusual that we have a lower kindergarten number, and usually by second, third grade, those numbers are back up. So is it, I'm not going to predict is that families are not moving here until their kids are already in school, or are they choosing a different path for kindergarten? But a lot of times what you see here is that that number does end up coming back up to normal as we move through. Some things that I do want you to specifically pay attention to is that this year in Jackson County opened a new charter school, and it lists for you there. I took that screenshot right off their website of the districts where students are allowed to register. I can see students that were with us last year, if their state ID actually transferred to 4 Points Academy, you can see where those students came from. That does not include our kindergarten students because they weren't mine last year to know. So Dr. Thompson actually put in a phone call to them, and they told us that they have 40 kindergarten students that came from Bexar County, in addition to these other students that left some of our schools. So that's 79 students right there from our district that have chosen to go to 4 Points Academy. And then also based on legislation from the 2024 school year, legislators passed Senate Bill 233 that approved the Georgia Promise Scholarship. It's a lot of what you hear in the news of a voucher bill. And we've told you before that we had 3 schools from which families could choose to take advantage of that. They get money, can apply to participate in the program, and it's money that comes to them to help pay private school tuition. Actually, it doesn't even come to the family. It goes straight towards the tuition or the other expenses that the family submits. We do know that 69 of our students chose to take advantage of that program, but that's all we know. We don't know from specific schools they came from. They had to come from one of the 3, but we don't know which ones. We don't know what grade levels. The only report we received is that 69 of our children chose to take that advantage. I will tell you, private schools have to report to us every October how many Barrow County residents are attending their private schools. So we hear from private schools from several counties away that say they have Barrow County students enrolled. But obviously our biggest are Bethlehem Christian and Hebron Christian Academy, and they both chose to participate in this program. So my assumption would be that that's where some of our children went, but we are not given that information. We just know they took advantage of the scholarship. Our 3rd largest enrollment of private school is Prince Avenue, and they did not choose to take advantage of students from the Georgia Promise, take those students in with them. And then we also have homeschool numbers in the state of Georgia. To homeschool, all you need to do is file a declaration of intent form with the Georgia Department of Education, and you agree to how many days you're going to go to school. You agree to some things, but that's really all you have to do is tell the state that you're doing that. So I can log online and see how many families have done that and how many students that includes. So you can see there's a large number compared to this time last year to this time this year. That more families have chosen to take advantage of homeschooling, or at least have this time filed their paperwork. But that's all they have to tell us. We know when we withdraw students, we give a code of where they're choosing to go. Did they transfer to another district? Did they move out of state? So far, we've had 58 that we thought were coming to us this year that instead have chosen to homeschool. So that's where we think some of our students went, but then Dr. Thompson has also looked at some enrollment numbers.
So part of what we're trying to unpack is this is really a fairly anomalous circumstance. In Barrow County, with the exception of the period during COVID-19, even when the economy was slow, even when growth and development were not nearly as high, we still routinely added about 100 and 120 students a year. We had many years we've added up to 300-400. But what you can see on this slide is we've had a 2-year trend of stagnation followed by regression. And as Ms. Persinger laid out, we added a lot of students. What's actually happening is we are losing students as quickly or faster as we're adding them. We mentioned some ways through the Promise Scholarship and through the new 4 Points Charter. We've added, it's 150 students that would not have had that opportunity that availed themselves of it this year. So you can see this is an interesting trend, and that's important for a variety of reasons related to capital outlay, budget, several things. We wanted to take some time with this. Megan, the next slide. We have seen increasing numbers of private schoolers over the years. We suspect that number will be even higher when we get that in October. We suspect homeschooling is up based on current trends right now. Next slide, Megan. We try to predict kindergarten using birth, so we can go back in Barrow County and look at live birth data from 5 years prior to a school year where the majority of your students were going to be born. Based on that, this really is an anomalously low kindergarten year. We've explained some of the reasons for that, but some of this seems to be parents deferring start. They don't have to enroll them. They're under compulsory when they're 5. They don't have to attend until they're 6. And we think for a variety of reasons, many parents may have waited a year. We know growth and development is happening across the county, and that's a long-standing. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. You can drive around and see that as you go around. It's in the Barrow Journal this past week, multiple developments being approved. That has historically, Megan, if you go to the next slide, that has historically, building permits have correlated very strongly with student additions. But what you can see on this is we added in SY 24 and 25 nearly 400 or above 400 students that came from new developments we were tracking that had just come on the market in the last 2 or 3 years. This year, we only had 220 students that had addresses that came from one of our tracked developments. So there's a little bit of a breaking down of that relationship this year. Part of the reason we think that is that sales have actually been lagging even as developments have been going on. What you're looking at is the quarterly trend in homes sold in Barrow County, and you can see going through that back 3 or 4 years ago, in a given quarter, somewhere between 400 and 500, sometimes more homes were being sold per quarter. That had dropped to about 300 for most of those quarters the last couple of years. It actually was up in this second quarter of 2025. And that is largely a phenomenon of the mortgage interest rates. When we started tracking this, it was 3% interest rates on average to buy a home. That number is now just south of 7%. That restricts the amount of existing homes that come onto the market because people don't want to sell and lose that locked-in lower rate. But additionally, that makes it harder for first-time home buyers or home buyers in the market to afford a mortgage. So we think that is also depressing sales a little bit. So when we pull all of this together, because we're trying to explain why we're seeing regression in the numbers, we think there are multiple factors at play. First, we're having an increase in parents that are choosing homeschool, and I will say, I don't want to draw this trend out too much, but when we looked at school systems and schools that had undergone tragedies like September 4th, a short-term enrollment dip was fairly typical. That was not abnormal. And there may be a variety of reasons why parents are choosing homeschool, and that is their right to do so, but we do have a larger number of them doing that. We think that we're likely going to see increases in private school enrollments. 4 Points Preparatory Academy and Promise Scholarships were something that did not exist prior to this year, and that has taken a chunk out of our student enrollment. And then possibility of parents delaying kindergarten, combined with, even with the volume of houses coming onto the market, sales have actually remained somewhat sluggish, which is reducing the amount of students coming out of those neighborhoods because it's taking longer for them to sell as they're put on the market. All of those things are in flux. Those are things we're going to continue to track, but because we did see a decline, when you've heard Ms. Persinger and I come up here many times talking about, hey, based on previous housing yields, we're expecting to add 300 or 400 students, it merits some unpacking with the board and the community about why that's not manifesting. So we wanted to take a little bit more time than we normally do to walk you guys through that. We are happy to take any questions you have. I hope that made sense.
I have one question going back
Yes,
on
Ms.
the
Kelly.
going back on the registration process and
Okay.
how cumbersome it is. As a parent, thinking back as a parent, 3 small kids, I can only imagine how frustrating that is trying to get your kids enrolled in school, and how many may say, you know what, I'll just homeschool them if they're still at that age. Have we checked into some of these things, if they're coming from another school district, like where you said that some of them don't have the finances to pay for a birth certificate? Is there some of those that we can maybe look at another neighboring school district and pull that so they don't have to reproduce the will? You know, they can already get that?
We do. For those that are have already been in school somewhere, is particularly in Georgia, if they tell us they don't have a copy of their birth certificate, we go ahead and request records because that district will send it. It's more these kindergartners that are starting for the first time. And if you think about it, they were born during COVID. I don't know what all was happening, but there's been a larger number this time that say, I just don't even have one.
Right.
Makes sense.
Hi, yeah, I have a question.
So for some of the people that maybe, are going through financial hardship, they're staying with relatives, and yet they don't have any services in their name, so how are we helping them?
So we have something called a multi-family form that they fill out. We ask that the homeowner fill that out and then provide us a bill in their name. And so they have it signed and notarized that this additional family is living with them,
Okay.
and then the bill is in the homeowner's name.
Okay, got it, thank you.
I just have one comment, Ms. President. I wanted to thank you and Dr. Thompson very much for looking at this, and I especially look forward to hearing the results from your debriefing so we can find out what we can do moving forward. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
I want to add one last thing on this, and then we're done with this piece. Everything that we are asking for is legally required for enrollment.
Right.
There are many we sometimes provisionally enroll students based on documents that are not that are required but aren't required for direct enrollment. There are some districts that won't even provisionally enroll students. So if you don't have we didn't even discuss the health form or the immunization forms. If they don't have those, they don't let them start. We do let students provisionally start and only remove them if they don't have that document within a certain time frame. So there's nothing on there that's a Barrow County roadblock. These are all required in every district in the state. So we thought that would be something you would find interesting. All right, so for our next information item, I'm going to ask Ms. Mitchum to come up. The board was briefed on preliminary milestones results at your retreat back over the summer, but we have now received the full results from the entire state. And so Ms. Mitchum is going to walk you through a little bit of our 24-25 milestones results.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. So those of you that were here last year, if you think back, we actually came to you in October with milestone scores because they were held up by standard setting for new math standards. So here we are in August. We were waiting, like Dr. Thompson said, the state had to do their public release before we can talk about them publicly. So that happened about 2 weeks ago, and here we are. And we're just going to briefly go over what milestones is and how we use it. So state defines it as a summative assessment, and that's an assessment of learning. So our students that are enrolled in a grade level take it at the end of that grade level in grades 3 through 8, and then our high school students take a milestones assessment in 4 different courses throughout their enrollment in high school. So in Barrow County, we have a very balanced view of assessment. This is not the only assessment that we put our eggs in the basket. We have MAP assessment, we have formative assessments. All of these things take place throughout the year, so we make sure our students are meeting those milestones before we get to the actual end-of-year assessment. But these results are just based on state averages and our district averages. So, Megan, if you could go to the next slide. This is just a simple chart that breaks down which grade levels take which tests. So again, federal requirements require that we test in grades 3 through 8 in math and English language arts every year. In addition, 5th and 8th graders take a science assessment, and our 8th graders also take a social studies assessment. Once you get to high school, you're going to take 4 different milestones assessments over the course of your enrollment in the high school. So if you look there, we do take algebra, that is our math for mostly freshmen. And then biology is our science, U.S. history is the social studies, but if you'll notice that we are making a change, actually the state is making a change of which course is going to be tested in high school for ELA. And we are shifting from American literature, which is an 11th grade class normally, down to a 10th grade class called Literature and Composition 2. So one of the advantages of that is a lot of our students are going to be done with almost all of their EOCs by the time they finish 10th grade, so that they can move on to other things and not have to worry about taking those classes, or have time to take those classes if they missed out on an opportunity somewhere along the way. They have their 11th and 12th grade years. So then when we get our scores back from any of our milestones assessments, we get a scale score, which tells us how the student did, but then those scale scores are grouped into what we call achievement level descriptors, 1 through 4. So beginning learner through distinguished. A level 3 is what we consider a proficient learner, meaning that either they met the mastery standard for that content of their grade level or their course, and then the distinguished learner is going to be above and beyond that. So we're aiming for that proficiency in both types of assessments. So some of the acronyms that we use frequently are EOG and EOC. So the difference there is EOG is our end of grade. That's the third through eighth grade. And again, math and language arts, all of those grade levels. And then the science and social studies added in. And then high school is a little bit different because in those 4 courses, when they take that EOC, we actually get not just a scale score and an achievement level descriptor, but we also get what's called a grade conversion score, which for most of us makes a little bit more sense than some of the others because it is on a scale of 0 to 100. So they take that grade conversion score and they put it in the child's final grade in that course, and it counts 10% of their grade. So they do have a little bit of a stake in taking those EOCs because it can help their grade be higher, or sometimes it can cause some negative effects to their grades. So we do have that impact. But overall, from all of our assessments, and I can say this, that before our teachers went home for the summer, they had access to their EOC and EOG data of the kids they taught that year. So that's really important that we have that data to plan for instruction. What are we doing next year? What are we improving? And that sort of thing. So a couple other things. In October, we did bring you the state board waiver that was granted for our students at Appalachia. That has now expired, so they will go back to having 10% on their EOCs as opposed to the 0.01%. And then we're going to talk a little bit about student growth percentile. It's an interesting measure that the state uses, and they take every student and group them with academically similar peers. And that's not peers in our district. That's peers across the state. So they might be compared to a student in the county next to us and a student in South Georgia. And they all had the same score last year. So now we're going to compare them, and based on last year's score to this year's score, how much growth did we see? How high did they push their score from last year to this year? And then they quantify that with lower growth, typical growth, and higher growth. So it is an interesting measure that goes beyond just our district. So we're just going to look at a few of the high points of our scores. So this one is actually last year and this year. And so from our ELA assessment in grades 3 through 8, we get a reading at or above grade level indicator. So if you look at last year, we were just under the state average. And then if you look at this year, you'll notice that the state average dropped and we went up. So we are making progress in that direction, getting us toward that marker of being at or above grade level in our reading. So the next slide actually shows you the breakdown of those critical grade levels of 3, 5, and 8. And if you'll notice, our 5th and 8th graders were above that state average for reading at or above grade level. And I will note, when you talk about 3rd graders, this is actually the first time that they've been exposed to a milestones assessment. So kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, but sometimes, hopefully next year, as they become 4th graders, we'll see that grow even more. So, and then this is 4 years worth of data. So 21, 22, obviously still coming out of COVID, but you can see that there are some trends upward. And these are our students that are proficient or higher on the ELA or the math EOG. So grades 3 through 8 again. And again, we got new math standards last year, so we saw a jump in math last year, but then another jump this year. So we're headed in the right direction there. And then these 3 graphs just break down those different science and social studies. And then we also offer a high school physical science. You'll notice that we are continuing to push that proficient and above in the high school physical science. And this is a course that students actually can get a high school credit before leaving 8th grade. So again, we're happy to see those numbers continue to go up. And then when we look at our high schoolers, we're looking at, again, are they meeting that passing rate for their actual EOC? And you'll notice that the state is compared to the Barrow County average, and some of them we are neck and neck with the state, or we are exceeding the state average for that particular measure. So again, trends in the right direction, hopefully continuing. And the American literature, again, we will see a new assessment next year, and that will hold up our ELA results for all grade levels for next year. So we'll have that whole waiting game until October again. And then, so going back to the student growth percentile, these last two images break down what kind of growth we're seeing in both ELA, and then the second one is math, but this is ELA in particular. Our students that are demonstrating high growth are far and above the state average on students exhibiting high growth. So we are seeing them, that means that they are growing from last year to this year. So our students that are continuously enrolled with us and are getting Tier 1 instruction here in our county are seeing growth in their scores. So that's exciting. Math is not quite the exact same trend, but it does, we do have some grade levels that are definitely pushing those kids up into that growth measure. So the last two slides just have some links that are available. There's a breakdown. The state has all of this information available on their website. And I will also put a plug in that milestone scores are available on Parent Portal. They were available back in the spring just as a basic achievement level and scale score, but now the actual report from the state is available through SLDS on Parent Portal. So we do like to make those things accessible to our parents. So be happy to try to answer any questions you have. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. For our fourth information item, we're going to ask the board in just a little bit to consider an action item about Project Aware, both accepting the federal funds that come for that, but also to approve an MOU we have to make that work. So if we're going to ask the board to do that, we need to talk a little bit about what Project Aware is. And I'm proud to have a group of folks to talk about this because it really is a unique program that several districts in Georgia are taking advantage of that really does benefit our students. So I'm going to ask Dr. Christina Lowe, Karen Hope, Carmelita Hale, and Jade Baker to come up at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. All right, good evening. So for our first informational item tonight, we'd like to update you on the progress that we've made with Project Aware in the first 2 years of our 5-year grant that we have. In September of 2023, we were awarded the Project Aware grant alongside Northeast Georgia, Risa, Walton, and Jackson counties. So this is a $1.8 million grant that Barrow County receives over the course of 5 years. The first year of the grant, so from September to the summer, was all about figuring out our budget and what our grant goals and objectives were and learning the rules and all of that. And probably most importantly is hiring these 3 ladies right here. So we have Karen Hope. She is our program manager. She coordinates all of the programming and oversees the budget. And then we have Carmelita Hale and Jade Baker, and they are our clinicians that we were able to hire. All 3 of these ladies are licensed clinicians, and they have extensive experience in their field of work. Okay? So tonight, they're going to fill you in on year 2, so that was the last school year of the grant. But what I'd like to ask you to keep in mind is that while I think that you'll all be impressed with what they did last year, they were doing all of that while also supporting Appalachia High School. So they were there the day, they were mobilized on the day it happened. They were providing direct services to students and families and helping plan the recovery process with our team. So they were doing all of those things in addition to meeting and exceeding their grant goals for Project Aware. So I'm really excited for them to share with you tonight what they've been up to over the last school year.
Yes, we're very excited to get to share our updates with you all. I know that you've heard of Project Aware. You've probably seen some of our MOUs come across and even approved, our budgets in year 1 and year 2. So we're just really excited to actually get to show some of the numbers, some of the data, and what we've been able to accomplish so far. But just as a reminder for Project Aware, if you need it, we are a federally funded grant program for mental health infrastructure in schools, and we're kind of conceptualized into 3 buckets. So we have mental health awareness and literacy for our students. We have preparing adults and school personnel who work with students on how to recognize mental health issues that might be going on and getting them to the necessary care and treatment and resources that they need. And we also will help students and families connect with needed services if it's above and beyond what they might be able to access in the school building. So we are 100% here to promote mental health by terms of teaching and learning. So schools are for teaching and learning, and we want to make sure our students and our families are healthy so that they can be taught and so that they can learn. So we're just going to share a couple of accomplishments we've had throughout the year that kind of fit into these three buckets, some of the things that we're really proud of. The first one is related to mental health awareness for our students. You can move on to the next. Thank you. So one of the ways that we do that, a big part of the Project Aware grant is suicide awareness and suicide prevention for our students. So we've worked really hard this year to implement that in a lot of our schools. And I'm going to, for this slide, I'm going to turn it over to our experts, because these ladies right here are the ones that do a lot of the facilitating, a lot of the coordinating with our school counselors and our school social workers to get this programming delivered to our students. So, Ms. Baker?
So as Ms. Hope just shared, one way in which we increase mental health awareness for our students is by providing suicide prevention programming. And the program that we currently use in Barrow County is Erica's Lighthouse, which is a nonprofit organization whose efforts focus on providing free depression education and suicide prevention programming. And they provide that for the nation and internationally. So last year, we helped to support, model, and facilitate Erica's Lighthouse in our secondary schools. And of the 7th and 9th grade students, we had 1,540 who received the Erica's Lighthouse lessons. Of that total, roughly 11% of students felt empowered to ask for additional assistance for completing a referral and talking to either a clinician or their school counselor and asking for further help. And so this is, again, just our secondary schools. And if you don't mind, the next slide, thank you. For elementary, we developed a curriculum and we called it Wellness Days. So instead of a more strategic plan that we did for secondary schools, we did an age-appropriate curriculum where we read a book and we taught age-appropriate skills for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to work through any mental health situation that they might find themselves in. And so we also taught coping skills and characteristics of a trusted adult. And what was really great was the feedback that we received was not just how wonderful it was for students, but how well and received it was by the staff. Because they were able to take a moment to step away and also practice these skills that they've then further used in their classrooms.
I would also like to add with Erica's Lighthouse, there was an asterisk. We do want to see those numbers go up next year. We weren't able to facilitate quite as much programming last year because we did delay a lot of that after September 4th. It just, so a lot of the programming was supposed to be delivered in September and October, and we just didn't feel, that it was appropriate at that time. So we do expect those numbers to increase next year. Moving on to kind of the second bucket, in terms of preparing adults who interact with youth, this one is really important because, we can provide direct services to students all day long and help them feel better and help them improve their coping skills. But if they don't have healthy adults in their life, or if they don't have adults who know how to best support them, then that can be really challenging. So we deliver a lot of programming and training to the adults in the community and in our schools and how to support students. One major, if you could go back, I'm so sorry. One big one in terms of the grant goal is youth mental health first aid. We were really excited to get to have our inaugural class of that in March, I believe. It was all of our SROs got to participate in that. It's a 6-hour course learning about common mental health concerns for adolescents and how to de-escalate, how to respond, and most importantly, how to get them connected to the resources that they need. That class also included a few of our special education coordinators, some transportation supervisors. We really want to include transportation. A lot of times, our bus drivers are the first ones to see our kids in the morning, and so we want to make sure that they feel prepared and have the skills that they need to best support our students. And that is also something these two ladies right here are taking off this week to get their certification as a trainer. That was supposed to occur for us last year. Didn't happen. We were doing other things, and that's okay. We're going to get that taken care of this year, so we're going to be doing a lot more of those in terms of, getting our adults trained. QPR, question, persuade, refer, that is a suicide prevention practice for non-clinical people, so teachers, anyone who may not be a therapist. It's just a series of questions that they can ask if they think a student might be struggling or contemplating suicide. And it just really, most adults who care are going to say the right things anyway, but it just kind of gives adults who don't have clinical training confidence in how to ask the right questions. And then we do a lot of trauma trainings in our schools, on trauma-informed practices in our schools for our teachers, and how to understand how students might react if they've experienced trauma, how we as adults have experienced trauma might react with students as well. So we're looking forward to providing a lot more of that in the years to come.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So with the QPR, are the adults trained to stop questioning or change their direction when it becomes a sexual abuse issue, when they might need a forensic interview?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just was
a great
curious how that aligned with that kind of training.
That's a great question, yes. It's a very basic, thing. We'll ask a few questions, and then it's very much whatever resource is most
Right.
appropriate for that student or that child
Right.
is where it's going to go.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Okay, next slide. And this brings us to the last bucket, which is how we connect students and families to needed services. The Project Aware team serves as a centralized pathway for mental health referrals outside of the schools. So if a student is identified at a school as needing more intensive or additional mental health treatment that kind of can't be handled on a school level by our wonderful counselors who check in, or they might have lunch bunch groups or things like that. If a student needs more than that, then they're referred through us. And we process those referrals. We talk with families. We kind of figure out, based on insurance, based on need, based on what's going on, kind of the best option for that student and family going forward. Last year, we had 565 referrals that came through our office that we were able to process and assist with. I can't see that far. Oh, there we go. Elementary school, 160, middle school, 191, high school, 195, and then our Horizon program, 19. So as you can see, it's pretty evenly matched across grade bands. The number I'm most excited about, which may not seem like a high number, but I can explain why it is in just a second. That 40% number is the number of referrals we received that we were able to connect with a resource where that student or family actually started services. Which, if you think about a counseling referral, kind of like the registration process, can be pretty arduous. It can take a lot of time because you have to get paperwork done, you have to get consent signed, you have to have initial interviews, and then the therapist, so it's a pretty lengthy process. So for 40% of that, 565 to actually start services is a really great number. The SAMHSA national average for Project Aware, other Project Aware districts nationally, is 25%. So we're exceeding that by a pretty good bit. So we're proud of that. And then, of course, our procedure allows us to be able to track and monitor, which I think is what helps that number stay up, is we can kind of stay with families along the process, help them overcome barriers, work with our treatment providers to remove any barriers that might exist or things like that, and kind of stay with our families throughout the process. What's helpful with that is the MOUs. A big part of the grant is increasing access, and so by having MOUs, additional MOUs with providers that might be able to see students for different reasons, might accept different insurances, really helps with access. Because I don't know if any of you have ever, had to see a specialist for any reason with, Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever the case may be. Sometimes you have to go to about 3 or 4 different doctors before you find one that has availability, that can take your insurance, that can treat whatever might be going on with you specifically. So it It can be a lot. So we've been able to increase our MOUs with our providers from 1 to 7 in the last year. So that means we now have 6 more agencies that can come into our schools and work with our kids. And we just, provider orientations, monthly check-ins, we just kind of stay in communication with those providers to make sure we're all on the same page. Universal screening is also part of the grant. That was going on here prior to Project Aware. We've just kind of helped with the data end. Rutgers helps us kind of analyze that data, and we figure out, based on universal screening, what the gaps are in Tier 1 and Tier 2. So do we need to look at character strong? Do we need more small groups? So we've been able to help with some of the analyzing of data around the universal behavior screening to see what Project Aware programs and services we may be able to fill the gaps with. And then we have the services that our clinicians provide, our direct services. They do a lot of solution-focused interventions with our students on the school level. They both are trained in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, CVITs, Bounce Back, which are short-term trauma groups. We have a great partnership with Kate's Club, which is a nonprofit for grief, where we have grief groups going in a lot of our schools. And then, of course, as mentioned before, the crisis response whenever there's a situation at a school, whether it's a student, might be threatening suicide, or there might be a tragedy happen, we will oftentimes respond to provide the necessary crisis response there. And just a little bit more about crisis, since that is such a big part of the grant. We've developed a partnership with North Georgia Health Systems in Laurelwood, where we have a kind of a direct line between students who might be in crisis at school. Historically, we've had to call a state number, a GCAL number, that, of course, a very overburdened resource, and that can take some time. And if you've ever been in a school with a kid in crisis, 30 minutes feels like 3 hours or 4 hours or 4 days, or so. And given that sometimes the response time could go on 4 or 5 hours, we needed to find other ways to support not only the kids but also the school staff. So we kind of have a direct line with Laurelwood now through a partnership with them for crisis evaluations. Prepare training is a training that offered through Project Aware that will prepare mental health professionals for crisis response. We did one of those in April a year ago and are looking to do more. And then again, incident response and consultations when it comes to crisis situations. In addition to Appalachia, things didn't stop happening last year. So, if there was a car accident where a student was injured, or something happened with a teacher, those things kind of kept going. So we were able to respond to a lot of those to alleviate the pressure that school staff often feels when that happens. And lastly, I want to provide an update on the Cook Center. This is a partnership that came about in the past year as more of a resource for families and for parents. So it is a kind of a 3-tiered resource that provides free on-demand library around various mental health topics that just anyone can access through their website. There's the mental health series, which is our daily live webinars facilitated by licensed therapists on different topics around disordered eating, around vaping. There's an Ask a Therapist Live, where the therapist will ask questions live from parents, and that happens Monday through Thursday. And I believe there's about 6 or 7 of those sessions also offered in Spanish from start to finish. And then parent coaching is through the Cook Center, free parent coaching. So any parent can sign up for and get connected with a virtual parent coach that's kind of similar to like a life coach, where they will help them with various issues around struggles with parenting, time management, executive functioning things. It's not therapy, but it's just kind of a coach to help you with your life. And then these are just the numbers, which we're really excited about. The green bar is the usage over the summer. We launched this back right in May with Mental Health Awareness Month. So that over the summer, we had 191,000 that's kind of considered a parent or a family, like a new user, participate in 219 sessions. And then the third column is kind of the web pages viewed, so how many people went to the website and looked through their material. So then as you can see, that yellow number is from when after school started, so those numbers increased almost double. So we're really excited about the participation we're getting, that parents and families are using this resource to learn more about mental health and how to support their students. And then these are just the most viewed topics. They're able to provide some data. So our families, this is what they looked at the most when they went to the website. This is what they wanted to learn more about. And that is all I have. We're really excited to share these with you. And if you have any questions, yes, ma'am.
Are you actually diagnosing kids with, okay, so you're just, when you're referring someone, a child, say you think a young lady or might have an eating disorder, you're referring them to a doctor, or how are you? You're not diagnosing them, you're actually suggest, okay.
Yes, so it would be, if we were to receive a referral for a student who's identified as possibly having a eating disorder or disordered eating, we would talk to the family, figure out insurance, figure out what their capabilities might be about getting them to counseling. Does it need to be virtual? Does it need to happen at school? And then, of course, finding an appropriate provider that could treat the specific issue. But
And it's expensive, so like if they don't have the resources, does the school or does Project Aware actually help with those therapist costs?
we don't have the funds to help. Like we couldn't pay for
Okay.
treatment. We could help them find existing resources,
Okay.
whether it was through their insurance company or if it was a medication they needed, for example, we could help them go through like the coupon process for that.
Okay.
But we don't have the funds to actually pay for the treatment, but we could help them locate existing resources that could
Okay.
potentially help.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In just a second, we're going to ask you to, add an action item to take some action on Project Aware, but I will say that is a great group of people who implement this program as well or better than anywhere in the state, and that has made a huge difference in Barrow County students. The last information item, I'm going to ask Dr. Lowe to very briefly talk about some of our plans for the September 4th one-year mark at schools that are not Appalachia, because Ms. Zimmer walked through that process last month. This is for the rest of our schools.
Thank you again, Dr. Thompson. So yeah, as you all are aware, the one-year mark for the tragedy that happened at Appalachia High School is coming up next week on September the 4th. And so while Appalachia High School has comprehensive plans that are specific to their schools, we did want to give you an update on our district plans. So in line with recommendations that we have received from experts, our school systems, school counselors, social workers, psychologists, and our mental health clinicians came together to create plans to stand in unity with Appalachia High School on this day. So as you can see here on the screen, schools have various options they can choose from to engage in a day of prevailing love. Schools can choose to send thank you cards to first responders, counselors, or community partners who poured into us last year, or they can create banners with messages of love and support for Appalachia High School, or even send positive letters to their classmates. And if they're the little ones, then they even have an opportunity just to create a kindness chain in their classroom. And then hopefully we'll just see a bunch of blue and gold that day everywhere as everyone dresses in Appalachia colors across the district. And so we're just hoping that these activities will not only remind Appalachia High School that we stand alongside of them, but also remind our school community to be good to one another, to spread kindness, and that love always prevails.
Thank you.
Thank you. For our first action item for the September 2nd work session, we are going to ask you to take action on Project Aware, and Dr. Lowe will talk a little bit about what that looks like.
All right. As we talked about during our first informational item, we are entering year 3 of our 5-year grant with Project Aware. So for our action item tonight, we'd like to request adding the MOU with Northeast Georgia RESA for monitoring, and then the implementation of funds up to $420,000 to the consent agenda for the September 2nd Board of Education meeting.
Everyone good with that? Okay.
slow. Stop playing our back and forth game. For our last action item, I'm going to ask Mr. St. Clair to come up and discuss a policy revision that has been on the table for the last month.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends removing policy IFBG, which is the Internet Acceptable Use Policy, from the table and approving the revisions as presented. Policy IFBG, our Systems Acceptable Use Policy, governs the use of systems, internet network, and other school district technology by students and staff, and it has been on the table for the required review period. These revisions were necessitated both by changes in technology and new requirements from Senate Bill 351, which was passed during the 2024 legislative session, and is required to be in place for all Georgia districts by October 1st, 2025. The board has to approve it by October 1st. We have to have it uploaded to the DOE for their approval by October 15th. The documents outlining the proposed changes are attached, and we received only one comment during the public review period. It was positive as to the policy change, and if you will indulge me, I'd like to read it to you in its entirety. Nice. I will take any questions.
All right, consent?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. St. Clair. That's all we have at this time. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Houston, our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. Before I jump into instruments and surplus vehicles, we wanted to update the board on the bonus that you initiated and approved during the budget process. We will be processing those bonus checks at the end of this week, and for all eligible employees, they will receive these funds next week on September 2nd. $1,000 for all full-time active staff and $500 to $250 for those less than 50% active employees. I think I can speak for all staff that this is very much appreciated, and we are thankful for the board's support. My first action item is on June 3rd, 2025, the board approved transferring $117,000 from the general fund to the capital projects fund to give each high school $30,000, middle school $6,000, and CFIT $3,000 for instructional instruments. A committee comprised of middle school and high school band directors convened to evaluate the score and scored submitted vendor bids. The evaluation criteria included product specifications, vendor reviews and reputation, service and support, warranty terms, proposed delivery date, past experiences with the vendor, and overall price. Each vendor was evaluated based on these categories to ensure a comprehensive and fair selection process. The committee scoring reflects both qualitative and quantitative factors to determine the vendor that best meets the program needs. The superintendent recommends approving the purchase of the attached list of instruments for high school and middle school band classes. Total amount will not exceed $117,000.
Okay. Consent?
Yes. All right, thank you. All right, our next item is surplus vehicles. The vehicles below are all over 19 years old and no longer run properly. These vehicles will be placed at auction and sold for the highest bid. If they do not sell, they will be sold for scrap metal. Funds will be placed in the general fund. The superintendent recommends declaring as surplus the 6 vehicles below.
Consent?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, now we'll hear from Dr. Brown, our Chief Academic Officer.
Good evening. The Chief Academic Officer report contains 3 items of information and 1 action item for the September 2nd, 2025 Board of Education meeting. So for the first information item, Dr. Salethia James, our Director of Elementary Education, is going to come forward and share with you a little bit about the Georgia Early Literacy and Dyslexia Act and the work that our schools are doing to meet the needs of our students.
Good evening. Across the nation, state legislators have been focusing on early literacy and dyslexia through new policies. In April 2025, Georgia House Bill 307, the Georgia Early Literacy and Dyslexia Act, was signed into law. The purpose of House Bill 307 was to merge and clarify early literacy and dyslexia requirements put in place by Senate Bill 48, which was the dyslexia law, and the Georgia Early Literacy Act, House Bill 538. Dyslexia is a learning disability that primarily affects a person's ability to read, spell, and sometimes write. It is not related to intelligence, but those with dyslexia process languages differently. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability and is a neurological in origin and is characterized by difficulties with accurate and fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in phonological component of language. This also impedes the growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. House Bill 307 sought to improve reading achievement in kindergarten through third grade by concentrating on targeted areas, to name a few. Some of the key components include instructional materials that are aligned to the science of reading and using the state-adopted standards, our universal screeners using measures designed to measure foundational literacy skills that help identify characteristics of dyslexia, teacher preparation. The state has aligned the Georgia Assessments of Certification of Educators, which is known as our GACE, with developmentally appropriate evidence-based literacy and appropriate instruction. Our Dyslexia Informational Handbook. As a district, we were required to send out our handbook to our staff and just make sure that they received a copy of the Dyslexia Handbook. And as far as required reporting, we are required to report data specific to these components mentioned throughout the year. This is a current outline of our process. We are currently streamlining our processes to be able to best support our schools as they support students as it relates to our dyslexia legislation. This flow chart was created with feedback from our school leaders to ensure that we were both in compliance, but most importantly, that we were meeting the needs of our students and being able to support them academically.
Okay, our information item, our second item of information is related to advanced academics, so advanced placement and dual enrollment. And for this informational item, I'll have a few people that will come up and share with you. Shelley Fallows, our Director of Secondary Education, Dr. Jennifer Wood, our CTAE Director and Principal at Sims Academy, and also Beth Mitchum, our Data and Assessment Coordinator.
Good evening. So Beth and I are going to speak briefly about the current course offerings we have around AP in Barrow County, and then we're going to take a look at student participation in the exams and then the scores from 2025. So this screen shows you the current course offerings. This is actually all of the courses that are available through AP College Board. We currently offer 25 of them through teachers in our district. So AP courses are courses that students can take for potentially earning college credit. So teachers who teach those courses have to have gone through preparation with AP College Board. We actually require here that they've attended a 30-hour summer institute. Many of them do that through UGA and other colleges. And then they also have to either be gifted endorsed, or if they don't have a gifted endorsement, they can complete a course through Georgia Learns. And then those teachers go through a very a syllabi process where they develop an advanced placement syllabi, make sure it is fully addressing those college level expectations, a course audit, and then our AP coordinators at the school each year review those courses and submit approval through College Board to continue offering. We do have times when students desire to take a course that we don't offer in Barrow, and we look for other avenues to try to meet their requests so that we can support their career needs and their college aspirations. This one is showing our current course enrollment in AP for this school year. So it may shift a bit. There are kids that may decide to take an AP course in semester 2, but currently we have a total of 1,503 enrollments in an AP course. That is made up of 888 unique students, so some students are taking more than one. And then you'll see right below that a breakdown of how many of those are full year courses versus a course that's taken in semester 1 or only in semester 2. So in May every year, these students take an AP exam, and that AP exam is given at our schools. And they get a score from 1 to 5. If they score a 3 or higher, most colleges accept that as a college credit. So you can see that typically a credit hour in a college in Georgia, a public college, is $318. Typically 3 credits are earned with an AP course, so that's $954. So this shows you that in Barrow County, through what we are doing in our AP program, we're not only helping our kids develop college-level skills, but we're also saving them potentially $1.4+ million just in this year. That's pretty exciting to say. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Beth to speak about exams.
I'm back again. I like numbers in case you haven't noticed. Numbers and graphs. So this graph actually looks at the number of AP exams that were taken, and this is now, we're up to 11 years of data here, over the course of us giving the exams. And you'll see that dip at COVID because, again, we weren't in school, they weren't finishing those courses, and you don't want to take an AP exam unless you feel confident that you're going to do well on the exam. So that explains some of those dips, but then you see we're rising again with 1,047. And then the next screen is going to look at those are individual students. So we have lots of students, as Ms. Fallows pointed out, that are taking multiple AP courses, and then that results in them taking multiple AP exams in the spring. And I can say from my seat, it's a scheduling chore to try to get the end of course test and the AP test all taken and everybody getting what they need. So, but it's exciting to see that many kids with the possibility of earning college credit. So then the next one, this is looking at the number of AP exams taken in each of the subjects we offer. And then if you go on, and that's for this previous school year, so these are the kids that actually sat for the AP exam. They may have taken the course, but you don't necessarily have to sit for it. But this is just a comparison of previous year to this year of where we're seeing some fluctuations in exams taken based on the academic area. And sometimes there are fluctuations in teacher availability and that sort of thing. So that may point out a reason why more kids took it last year than they did this year, or they just didn't enroll in it, that sort of thing. So the next one is the one that looks at what we consider a pass rate. And as Ms. Fallows said, a 3 or higher is typically considered passing and will translate into some sort of college credit. We do have colleges that sometimes require 4 or 5, but anywhere 3 and above, we do count as passing. So you see that number continues to go up. So that means kids are taking the exam and they're prepared for the exam. So we like to see that number go up as well. And then this is just the pass rate per subject. And so some of them, it fluctuates. And again, some of these courses, I'm sure my experience with AP courses too, some were harder than others. So that is the way it goes. So yes. And so just some real fun information that we didn't get in the presentation, but we did have 3 different students that took 3 or more AP exams and they got 3 5s. So we had 84 students, or 84 5s, and that represented 69 students. So we did have some students that were acing that AP exam, so they definitely got college credit. So appreciate it.
All right, and then one last thing, I just want to thank our AP coordinators at each school. Like she said, it's a lot to manage and to make sure everything is being done to the level of expectations put out by the College Board and the state. And so those people are Ben Broughton at Appalachia and, my goodness, Washina Lyles at Bassa and DJ Bennett at Winderberry High School. And so we're really appreciative of their leadership in this area.
Okay, well, good evening. And so I'm here to talk about the other way for students to earn college credit, and that's through dual enrollment. And so we can go to the next slide. So dual enrollment is an opportunity for students to earn college credit while they're in high school. So dual comes from the fact that they're going to be earning a college credit and a high school credit. And we like to say that this is a great way for them to prepare while they're in high school, sort of in a safety net, to get some exposure to that rigor of a college course, so that they're prepared for college, whatever institution they decide to go to. Allows them to be personalized so that they can choose, am I taking a technical route or an academic route? When we are talking to our students and our families, we're talking about how this is really building confidence and responsibility for them, because it is a college class. They're taught by college instructors. And then very similar to AP, it's saving our families lots of money because they're not having to pay for actual college classes when they're graduating and moving on. So it definitely has a financial impact for our families. Okay, next slide. So this slide is a list of the course offerings that we offer through Sims. So as you know, we have a wonderful partnership with Lanier Technical College. We love them as our partners. And so by taking these classes, our students are able to earn either technical certificates. So on one side, you can see those are all the technical programs that we offer. Some of these are actually in the Lanier Tech building, and then some of them are offered in the Sims building. And we're really excited to see this continue to expand. So you can see that just this past year, so starting this August, when classes started, when college classes started on August, I think it was the 11th, we were able to add criminal justice. So we have a retired Barrow County teacher who has decided to come back and teach for Lanier Tech. So she's teaching criminal justice. And then we were able to add a design and media as well. Again, some Barrow County people that are able to provide those classes for our students. So those are all the technical programs. And then on the other side, you can see those are all the academics that we provide, and those are all taught inside of the Sims. One of the powerful things about dual enrollment, and that what we like to talk about with our students and families, is that all of these courses, all of these academic courses that you see are part of the articulation with the University System of Georgia. So any of these courses that a student takes through Lanier Tech and at Sims is guaranteed to transfer to any University System of Georgia. Now, could other institutions require some additional courses? Absolutely. But we know that if a student takes English 1101 in Sims through Lanier Tech, that 1101 transfers to the University of North Georgia, and now that student doesn't have to sit in an English class at the University of North Georgia. So again, it's a way for students to not only earn credits, but also be able to transfer those. Next slide. So this is just some data through the years. So as you can see, our dual enrollment program is continuing to grow. So this is the 23 school year, the 24 school year, and the 25 school year. And if we had gone back, you would see the trend line even go steeper up. And so the first part are the courses started. So like AP, we have a lot of students that will take multiple courses. We try to schedule them blocks of time. So a lot of times our Appalachian or Winder Barrow students are taking 2 courses at a time, and because of our location, our BASA students are able to take only 1 at a time because obviously they can just simply walk over. At the high schools, they can take 1 class at a time if it would be an online class, but if they were taking something at Sims or Lanier Tech, we do try to block them. So that first one is their courses started. Then you can see those credits. I should have gone back and looked looked at the AP one, and I could have put some dual, but we could just do the math, those math people in here. So if we take 1,090 credits, and we multiply that by the average $318, again, that's how much we're saving Barrow County students and families by offering dual enrollment to our students. And again, that is a huge savings. And it's faster. Students, you know, I can speak to very specific students that are graduating sooner from college because of the opportunities they've had. And then you can see below that a specific number of students. So we had 372 students take advantage, and that's students in 10th through 12th grade. We did see a little bit of a dip just in the numbers of students because some of our students were able to drop courses after September. So that's why, otherwise we would have seen that be a little bit higher than the 394. Next slide. So you can see how it breaks down by grade level. So our 10th grade's always going to be smaller because those are only technical certificates, or like CTAE. Think of CTAE, so welding, automotive. And those are the only classes 10th graders can take. 10th graders could take academics, but they have to have super high ACT scores, SAT scores to get in and start taking academics in the 10th grade. So that's a very, very small population. But then you can see that it really increases with our 11th and 12th graders because that's when they start taking the academics. Next slide. So again, our strongest partnership is, of course, with Lanier Tech, and that's where we've seen 967 credits earned. Again, we do have students, you can see here, that are taking courses at other institutions. Primarily, what we focus on at Lanier Tech and what's in my realm is the partnership with Lanier Tech and offering those inside Sims. A lot of times these students are being facilitated. Each high school has a career center coordinator that helps with dual enrollment, as well as their high school counselors. And so those are maintained basically through their home high schools. And then the next slide, you can see again, this is just a list of the most popular courses. Obviously, English 1101 is one of our most popular, and that's really because that can count as their fourth English. So they kind of like that flexibility and building confidence and responsibility, and so they like to come over and take English 1101 or Math 1111, and then they don't have to be at their campus anymore. And so a lot of times what we're starting to see is we're starting to see students pair that with work-based learning. So they're literally coming to Sims for half a day, taking some college classes, and then they're actually going to work. And so again, it's building that confidence, it's building that responsibility, and they're really learning to advocate for themselves. So in closing, I just want to say that dual enrollment obviously is something that, besides CTAE, I'm very passionate about, and we're really, really proud that Sims and the board and our community just sees the value in the fact that we have this strong partnership and that we're able to continue to offer those things at Sims, because, I mean, it's just really preparing well-rounded students and just a better community, making sure that we're preparing those students for whatever that is, whether that's continuing in a technical college and getting more certificates and diplomas, going right to work, or if they continue on to another institution. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, I have a couple. I have two. One, when y'all were talking about scheduling conflicts, sometimes with the students, and that's a nightmare sometimes. Does that ever keep students from being able to take as many tests as they're prepared to take?
I can speak to that directly. I've answered multiple questions from multiple AP coordinators about which one comes first, and we can reschedule EOCs so that their AP exam gets taken, and we don't have them take them on the same day either, because that's not advisable either to try to end up with test fatigue on two very important tests. So no, we move things around however we need to so that they have that opportunity.
Okay. And my second question was on the BASA dual enrollment. You said you blocked those students to only one because they can walk over there and take them.
Yeah.
Does that hurt the BASA students from being able to take as many dual enrollment credits as the students of the other?
Yeah, they can take as many as they want. It's just that because of transportation and location, they could take a BASA class first block, walk over to Sims, take a second block dual enrollment, take a third block BASA class, and then come back and take a fourth block dual enrollment. It's just because of the flexibility in the location. We're right there, they just walk up. Whereas with Appalachian Winder Barrow, those students either will drive themselves, and so they, because of the time schedule, we ask them to come over in the morning, and then they have the midday kind of shuttle to get back to their home schools. And then we also, thanks to the board, offer transportation. So we have a shuttle. So they get picked up from home in the morning if they need it and brought to Sims to take first and second block. Then a shuttle will bring them back to their home school. And then the opposite in the afternoon. A shuttle will pick them up at their school, bring them over to Sims Lanier Tech, and then a bus takes them home in the afternoon. So it's the best of all the worlds combined that we offer to our students. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, our third item of information, Caitlin Maynard, one of our technology integration specialists, will come forward, and she's going to talk a little bit about the implementation of Parent Pro Tech lessons, and those promote responsible digital citizenship and the safe and appropriate use of technology.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Good evening, everyone. So earlier tonight, John mentioned the acceptable use section of Senate Bill 351, and this slide talks more about Section 2-1 and Section 2-2, which really requires Georgia Public Schools to implement these methods of promoting responsible digital citizenship and the safe and appropriate use of technology. And we all know how really critical and important that is right now, especially with all of our children. It seems like the earlier they are in life, the sooner they get a phone. So I'm really excited about having these lessons available to our students. The Georgia Department of Education has partnered with Parent Pro Tech to provide lessons that cover 7 standards that are outlined within the bill that just cover anything from how to watch what you post, how to report what you see online, just everything that is very critical at this point in time. Through this partnership, every teacher can create a Parent Pro Tech account to access the lessons in their classrooms. And the 3 lessons that we will be focusing on with our 6th through 12th grade students are social media influences that talk about friendships and body images and how what is posted online can affect how you feel about yourself and your friendships. Netiquette, how to behave online, and then also trust issues, which really helps them to figure out how to safeguard themselves online. So those were the 3 lessons that Parent Pro Tech and the Georgia Department of Education decided those would be the best, like bang for our buck, to look at for the 7 standards for this first initial year. As a parent myself, I'm excited about the resources that are available. We are working on getting that information out to our families, how they can sign up for their own Parent Pro Tech account and have the same access to these articles, videos, and other resources that can help them with their children in their homes. So again, we're very excited about this partnership, and we're looking forward to seeing just some improvement in this area of life. Thank you. Any questions? Mm-hmm. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so finally, our last item is an action item, policy BAB, school board governance. Through this policy, the Barrow County Board of Education establishes the school board's central components of governance, core beliefs, system of teaching and learning, and clear accountability. And the school board believes Barrow County school system students should have access to a high-quality education provided in safe and secure schools, and our families and communities should be active partners in supporting our students. So the superintendent recommends removing board policy BAB, school board governance, from public comment and approving said policy at the September 2nd Board of Education meeting. At this time, we have not received any public comment. However, we did have the opportunity to explore the policy elements with teachers, instructional coaches, and administrators, and have received positive feedback regarding the policy. I also want to take a moment to thank you all as a board for your thoughtful work in developing the policy and commending the way that it reflects your commitment to aligning your beliefs with the actions of our school district. So thank you. Any questions?
Consent?
Okay. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. All right, Dr. Kurtz, Chief of Staff report.
Thank you so much for having us tonight. We have one information item and are excited to share a little update about the classification and compensation study that the board approved funding for this summer. We've got that in the budget and we're excited to have it. It really is about taking care of our folks. About 88% of our budget or a little bit more goes towards those adults that make a difference in the lives of our kids, either directly as classroom teachers or indirectly by supporting those classroom teachers. So we have a little presentation here on the compensation study. That should be linked in there we go. And it begins with the board's beliefs. And in the board's beliefs, you guys have outlined a number of things that we need to do to provide our students with an education. And that includes some necessary conditions like a safe learning environment, but also competitive compensation and some opportunities for our professional staff to grow and make sure that they are focused on those educational outcomes more than they are on their car payments. So we need to make sure that we're doing the right things by them. So we've started this compensation study. The goals of that on the next slide are to really make sure that our positions are objectively benchmarked. We need some internal equity of positions so that as folks look at their neighbors doing similar work, maybe on a different piece of software or a different set of classrooms, that compensation and that support looks fairly similar for similar work. So that we're objectively benchmarked based on criteria and that we're internally consistent are the first two goals. But really what we also have to do after we've got those things done are make sure that we're externally competitive. We have great teachers here, but we need to attract and retain the best all of the time. And we can't lose good teachers to other districts, so we need to look at our competitors, both in the public sector as well as the private sector, and make sure that we are exactly where we want to be in terms of our compensation structures. And all of this allows us to attract and retain the best, but also allows us to make sure that we're doing that in a manner that meets another commitment this board has demonstrated in the months that I've had the pleasure of working with you, and that is to make sure we're fiscally efficient in this work, that we're doing this in a way that is respectful to our teachers, our staff, that best supports our kids, but is also respectful to our taxpayers, and that we're doing this as efficiently as possible. And I think we can meet all of those needs, and I'm excited about this undertaking. It's been a decade since this has been done, and we have the opportunity now to really fix some things and set our course and our direction for the next decade. In the process, we are first starting with classification, and that's a really important part. It's not really about our salary schedules. That would be very easy. We could do that internally. We've got to get folks benchmarked correctly. Ms. McNally will give a little overview of some of these processes, but we're already underway in the classification. We don't really get into talking about the compensation until we know that everybody is in the right spot. Their jobs are objectively benchmarked, and we can start to compare those to each other internally and externally. Then we look at the market. We look at who are our competitors, who are we losing folks from, and where do we get folks, and how do we make sure that we're keeping the best and attracting the best. Once we have all of that done, we will work on developing our salary schedules, which will include some guidelines on where we place folks on those. And once those are developed, the hard part comes, and that is really implementing and communicating this, because we want to be transparent in all of our work so folks can know what they're expecting. Folks can easily place themselves there. As the folks are looking to move to Barrow County, they can say, hey, here's what I can expect if I'm moving to a teaching position in Barrow County. Ms. McNally is going to go over a little bit of the process here. She has been knee-deep in starting this already. I think we started mid-July on this.
All right,
Great, thank you, Dr. Kurtz. Good evening. So the first step in this classification process is for Ed Planners, who is the company that we've partnered with for this work, is for them to take all of our current job data and classification information and begin to analyze that. So they are going to take things like our current job descriptions that we have, our current salary scales, and then any criteria that we use to place our employees on those scales. So they will gather all of our current written data. The second piece of information that they are going to take is what we call a position analysis questionnaire. And that is an electronic questionnaire that's designed to implement content information for each of our positions. The questions that are on this questionnaire really ask our employees to put their voice to a job description. It asks them things like, what do you spend the majority of your day doing? What do you find to be the most difficult piece of your job? So really, it's taking the job description and putting their voice to that. We did send out the PAQs back at the beginning of August, and we expect to have those back on the 31st so that they can take that information and begin to review it. The third piece of information that they will review is potential desk audit information. And this is where they could potentially go and sit down with employees and talk with them. The reason that they may need to do a desk audit is just to gain further information about the job. So let's say they have a job description and then they have the PAQ or the position analysis questionnaire and they're different. They may need to talk with that person, so a desk audit may be needed. And finally, they do what's called a factor analysis, and that's when they use 9 objective criteria to assign point values. So they are looking at things like, what is the role of a supervisor in this position? What knowledge may be required for the position? What is the work environment? Or what are the physical demands of the job? And so they will use points and look at all of this information to begin the classification. Remember, Dr. Kurtz said classification, there are 2 pieces. There is an internal equity piece that we're looking at. That's the pay relationships with our positions. But then there's also the external competitiveness that we're looking at. So that's our pay relationships with the labor market and those that are outside of us. So for the external piece, they will be doing a market analysis. So they will gather salary data from outside school districts and local industry to compare with our job titles. So we do this first by identifying who. Who are our competitors? Who are we losing our best employees to? And then they'll analyze the data and compare what we have to them. They're going to look at things like how many days are worked, what is a work year for that position, what is the earning potential, what is the max salary, the minimum salary for that position. And then finally, they will externally benchmark the positions where we compare our job descriptions and pay to those outside of our district. And then finally, we will have a new classification and compensation system where they will develop salary schedules. So each of our positions will have a minimum salary, a maximum salary. They will use the classification criteria to place each position on the pay scale. And then they will also help enhance our current guidelines for how we place employees on different salary schedules. So the end goal in all of this for us is that we have an easy to understand system, an easy to administer system, and retain and recruit the best employees for our school system.
And so the next step will be implementation and communication. And we're going to have to identify our greatest area of needs first. We're going to have to say, what is the most important thing in moving our kids forward, and how do we invest in that, and where do we pull from to do that? So once we've identified those, we'll develop an implementation schedule to get us exactly where we want to be as quickly and as fiscally efficient as we can. And then we have to communicate those findings regularly so that people understand these changes as they're coming. Speaking of communication, I started walking into this meeting and somebody was frustrated with how much time they had to spend on the position analysis questionnaire. And I think that would be a great area where I could have communicated better in making sure that folks really understand how valuable this is. If we're only going to do it once every 10 years, we need to make sure that we've got the best information, that we can keep that up to date, that we can make changes all along. So that is really our final step in this. Any questions? I'm excited about this work, and I do also want to share compensation is an important piece of attracting and retaining the best, but the other really important piece, the reason people leave or stay at jobs, is leadership, and I'm excited about our leadership too. We are also investing a great deal of work and energy there, and we have great leaders, directors, principals, otherwise. And so those two things together, I think we're set on the right path, and so I want to thank the board for supporting all of that.
Thank you, Dr. Kurtz. All right. A lot of information tonight. Good reports. Thank you all. At this time, we need to move into an executive session. Could I have a motion for executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent?
So moved.
Ms. Kelly? Second? Second. Ms. Hendricks? All in favor? All right. Thank you.
I seem to be very happy to be here.
I've just been constantly blown away, and I find myself bragging to my family and friends about the skills and the abilities that the interns have gained throughout this course of the school year.
I think that their courage has grown, their determination to do things has grown. I just feel like that they're more confident in themselves now that they're working with us.
So I've seen the project interns grow during my time with me by just really learning that they can do things that they didn't think they could do before, and doing some tasks that they haven't done before and really enjoying it.
I love being able to see what the interns are going to be doing and to be able to see how accomplished they are at each one of their tasks. I had no idea that they were all capable of so much.
They have a great attitude, they are very motivated, and I've just been impressed with them.
Project Search students have really changed the culture by making it a happier workplace. And, you know, that not only includes the Winder Housing Authority, but all of our partners under roof. Yeah, it's made it a happier place to be.
I would say it's brought everybody closer together. They love the environment of working with the interns. It kind of brings happiness to the whole group as a whole here in the Wimberley Center, working with them.
I can't imagine having our Project Search program anywhere else because of the welcoming impact the Winder Housing Authority staff has had on us.
I enjoy being here every day and learning new skills, and it's a perfect way to learn what a job world will look like in the future.
I feel great about working here because you get to learn new experience, and now that it's not the same job over and over again, you get to learn different stuff and how to do that, different jobs.
It's really gotten me someplace that I've really enjoyed.
I believe these Project Search participants have a great chance to perform and not only just get a job, but to excel.
And we need for the community to get behind us and really give these kids the opportunity that they deserve. The community is going to end up with some pretty fantastic employees.
I just think it's a great opportunity for these interns. It's something that they'll never forget, and we'll never forget here either.
Even if moving forward we are not the direct mentors, I still would love to have some sort of involvement with Project Search. It's meant a lot to us.
It's just an awesome opportunity to pass something along to somebody who might never get the opportunity to do that, and we're giving them that opportunity. So I think it's a great thing.
Their dreams of the future has changed. They have realized that they can do what they dream to do, and there's resources for them to be able to do it.
I like Project Search because this taught me a lot more than any other place that I've been in.
I would definitely do Project Search again.
I will Project Search.
Okay, Vicki, I'm so glad to be able to present you with a little token of our appreciation for being the March Community Member of the Month for Barrow County School System. Gretchen Hollingsworth nominated you for all the wonderful things you do for BASA and the schools. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I love you. I love you too. My name is Vicki Keebler. I am the Senior Director of the Chamber of Commerce here in Barrow County.
I am Gretchen Hollingsworth. I'm the Innovative Learning Coach here at Barrow Arts and Sciences Academy. You might actually not remember the first time we met. We met at CFIT. You came to observe a presentation that the first Lego League team was practicing, and I was helping out with the team that year.
Right.
And they presented their
gosh.
gondola activity to Vicki, and she donated her time to come in. You gave amazing feedback. In fact, you have gondola experience, and so
Yes.
She brought just a wealth of knowledge to the presentation. It really helped the students. But more recently, we served on the school governance team together
We
here
did.
at Barrow Arts and Sciences Academy.
I missed that.
Every month would come, give good feedback, help us out. But even more so than that, just the way you connect people in our community, your work with the chamber. One of your strengths, I think, is just keeping Barrow County that small town feel, but still pushing the progress, connecting people, making sure that these positive relationships just continue to grow and grow. So I cannot thank you enough. Plus, she trusts us with her grandchildren here at BASA, and so we just think the world of you.
The SGT, it was something that I was approached and asked to be on. I'm like, okay, tell me about it. When I learned what it was, especially here at BASA, it was so big that, we got to connect with the students. We got to make decisions about their graduation, their crest. We helped with their fundraisers for their field trips.
Yes.
We got to go into the classroom and watch the teachers and the students, which if you have not done that, it is amazing what these students are doing nowadays. And I was a little like, oh, do you really want somebody my age? And you know what? I am so grateful that I was chosen to be on it because I really miss it. That was wonderful, a learning experience. And that's what got me to get my 2 granddaughters here at BASA. I just fell in love and I'm like, oh, y'all have to go.
That is great. And it's a time commitment for sure. And then when her term ended, she did not leave us high and dry. She actually helped us obtain 2 new community members, which bring such value to our school governance team. And we appreciate that too, because it's hard to lose people like you off the team.
I was really surprised when I got the email, and I was not surprised at Gretchen nominating me, but we connected right away.
Right.
We did. We've connected straight through. It's just an honor to be able to be
In
part
regular
of this school.
session, could I have a motion to approve the personnel report?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Hendricks. Second by Ms. Bradford. All in favor? All right. Motion carries. All right, we have our board meeting next week. And Ms. Kelly, you will have the invocation next week. All right. With no other business, we will now adjourn.
Thank you.